Hey everyone. Today I have a deck called Izzet Goldspan, and it's got the familiar Izzet flavors. Has the Sprite Dragon and Stormwing entity, which are good with your instant and sorcery cards. Plus, we are going to put in the Goldspan Dragon, a couple copies of those as well. So, right into the gameplay. This would be an undefeated gameplay. 50 minutes of winning. It was awesome. Really awesome. Demonstrates in the best of one meta how well the Izzet can be. Definitely think it could be a top 1200 deck if you really put the time into it and wanted to play games every day. You could definitely get into the top 1200 with the Izzet. I really enjoy the riddle form. I think it's a really good complement as sort of an invasive creature and defender. And it goes really well with a Royal Scion in the early game if you're not being pressured. So we're gonna go against rogues in this first game, and I have a pretty good draw. I have a good. I have a Scorching Dragonfire for the Thought Thief. So we're gonna take that out and hit for 3. This was a longer game. I was very fortunate to pick up the Ox in the Exile. I only have I believe one copy of it in my deck, perhaps 2. I do think I have 2 copies. I think it's important if you play Izzet to have an Ox or 2 in your deck because you frequently run out of cards. You have low cast cards and they're very powerful, but you just tend to run out of cards pretty quickly with Izzet. So it's important to have that reload feature with the Ox. And it plays really well against rogues. I really think you only need about 2 Oxes. I don't think really the Phoenix of Ash is going to be what you want for the Izzet deck. So we protected our riddle form on there. I don't think there's any problems with that right there. And I do believe they have fired off a Drowned in the Loch already, so that was good. So in this move, this was an easy, prior to getting the Bone Crusher, I was thinking of just unloading the riddle forms on that play. But I think it's fine to take out the Enforcer as well. So they end up drowning this as well. Now, at the time, I didn't want to roll out my Ox. Not quite yet. I had a Necrunor and a Riddle form in my hand, which was pretty powerful, so even if I could have reached the exile point, I don't think I was going to get rid of those cards. So we're playing rogue, so really you're not really going to get the card, and I didn't think that was really the card I needed at the time, so I just passed on it anyways. Put it at the bottom. So let's see, they're at 5 mana right now. I think they go for the Bone Crusher on this one. Bone Crusher is really good against rogues because it can take out the Enforcer and you can start hitting their life points too, which is really ideal for rogues. So he completely tapped out on that, or her, and I was able to exile 8 cards, which was pretty strong. Get a fresh reload. Yeah, so pretty much if I have the Ox going, like I don't really, I'm not really fearing a death by hit points. I'm fearing being milled, of milling myself. Like in this game, you see like there was no rune crabs. I got pretty fortunate to fade those. If rune crab was involved in here, we'd definitely be sweating the the deck, the deck total. So here we go. We're gonna just bounce the Luris at this point. We're just gonna deny value off of the board. They won't be able to replay it this turn. So, and the 1/1 just stays a 1/1 at this time. So not a bad result. Should be able to get in for some damage next turn. Or at the worst, they'll lose the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Okay, so they're just going to probably bring that card back next turn or bring a Thought Thief in. Just depends on what's their plan now. And obviously at this point, like I said with the Ox, they're not going to be going for my hit points. They're just going to be trying to mill me at this point, I believe. That should be their plan. Alright, so I get to scry with, that was a really good card for them, and I didn't really notice it in the game, I'm just so locked in, but that was a really good, like, last play there. They were able to draw 2 from of 1 mine. That was really stellar. And I had really not too much doubt in my mind that I was going to be able to pull off a victory here somehow. I just, with the Ox going off and just all the different threats I have in this deck, I was not too worried, I guess. Alright, so we drew 2 lands. That was not ideal. So you can see one of the issues with the Izzet is that you can definitely flood out. Whether it's the shuffler or just the way the deck is made, they just seem to flood like very frequently. And I am playing 22 lands in this deck, so it's not the most. So, I mean, I think the Royal Scion is kind of in this. You need to have a couple copies in your deck. I would say at least 3. If you want to play Izzet, definitely 3. You don't want to play 4. 4 is too many. You don't want to be just drawing and discarding into more Royal Scion when you don't need it. Just 3 is a good amount. So they went to put some damage on the Royal Scion on that one. Because they're afraid of the ultimate. Me hitting the ultimate on it. So they gave Dolores, so it's kind of crazy. So I'm going to have 2 chances here. Plus I'm going to be able to scry. So I'm going to have a couple chances of getting a good draw. And I was fine with the op. I get to activate the Riddle Form. Take a look at a couple cards here. See if I like any. And I really like that draw. I really, really like that draw. They're basically tapped. Mostly tapped out. So you do fear the counter spell, but I can run out my Ox too at this point. It's not a problem. So we're going for the life points now for them. So we're gonna put it on the Riddle Form just in case they have like a Heartless Act. That's obviously pretty much a bummer. So they end up going and finding a block against the Riddle Form, and it tramples over and kills off the Thought Thief. And then we're going to be able to run out the Ox. So you can see the Goldspan was so good at this time. That was such a good draw. I was able to do a couple of those things in succession. The Opt to the Goldspan. I got the Riddle Form out. It was just a very explosive turn. And so that's the real big strength of Izzet. Is just the explosiveness. You can like really turn the tide. Like almost instantaneously with these decks sometimes. And it's just like goes back to the Ox. The Ox is just a really strong cards against rogues. You have to have some graveyard hate in your deck, because if you don't, then the rogues are just going to run over you each time. They just have so much value in all their cards, and that's sort of their downside. If you're playing for their graveyard hate, if you sort of work that into your deck, which you should, then you'll have more of an even footing, more of a chance. So another good sequence is about to come up. So we want to get our Sprite Dragon going now. He's completely tapped out, so our Sprite Dragon is going to be able to do a lot right now. Will we get to kill? It is perhaps potentially possible, depending on what we draw here. And we're going to get our Riddle Form out at this time, and so now we get to Bone Crush Dolores. And this is looking really bad for them now. And that was a scoop. So if you look back at those couple last turns, it was a mixture of the cards that really can keep you in the game, right? The Riddle Form can scry, the Royal Scion can cycle, and then you have value, sorcery, and instant cards, which have lots of interaction with the cards you're going to play with, like Riddle Form, and they lead to more powerful cards that you can just keep playing and find value in the later game too. So you saw the Goldspan Dragon there at the end. It was very strong, and definitely probably won the game for us, I'd say. I really like the Lofty Denial over the Saw It Coming for the Goldspan Izzet, and especially because I'm playing a decent amount of flyers in the first place, and secondly, it's instantaneous. It's like a Jawari Disruption on turn 2. If I don't have any plays on turn 2, because I don't have the most value plays on turn 2, then it just goes into a counterspell. And I chose not to counter the Wolf Willow Haven because I had the bounce from the Borrower. And I want to save the Lofty Denial for the more important cards in their deck, such as Shadow's Verdict. That's sort of a killer for a lot of decks. Of course, the Genesis Ultimatum is another card to worry about. So right now, we want to protect our Royal Scion. And unless they have a Shadow's Verdict and they're willing to waste it on next turn, then we're going to go off for the ultimate with our Royal Scion and put him in a really bad place. And I want to get the Brazen Borrower out there so I can have my Lofty Denial available too, so I can counter anything that they perhaps want to play. Next turn. So they completely tapped out. I just got lucky on that one. I was able to play a Lofty Denial. They really want to kill that Scion. I mean, they really want to kill it now. So we're going to put 2 targets out there on the battlefield now. We're going to put out the Goldspan Dragon with the Royal Scion and give them a choice. So if they do have another Binding of the Old Gods, which is totally possible, then they'll take out one or the other. They can't take out both. So that was the thinking process behind that play. So they had another Binding of the Old Gods, which is unfortunate. But hey, they're a Genesis Ultimatum deck, so that's like one of the best cards that you can have. It's I would say gotta be top 5 new cards to come out. Destroy any target permanent an opponent controls. Anything. Ugin Killer, whatever. It can kill anything, and you can blink it. It's crazy. A really strong card. That card's going to be around forever. You know, this Genesis Ultimatum deck, it's going to be around. It's got some big legs, man. Some serious legs. Alright, so once again, we're getting our Scion going. We've done some damage to them. Genesis Ultimatum right now looks like it's definitely on the board. It's potentially there, which is unfortunate. It's just it's a tough deck to beat. I deliberated here, like, do you think I could find a counterspell with my ram through or something? That went through my mind. But I'd rather just flash in the Borrower. That was my mindset behind this. He's at 8. So we're very close. We're getting close. So we got the good news. No Genesis Ultimatum. That was really good news. So they ended up blinking, of course. They're Binding of the Old Gods, which is incredibly overpowered card. And they will be likely taking out the Goldspan Dragon. Most definitely. And I was able to flash in because I still have, it's just 4 mana floating. Goldspan Dragon's so good. I guess that card's pretty overpowered too, so it balances out. So this is like why Embercleave really comes into play. We had the Royal Scion. It's just a lot of damage. Yeah, I mean, there's not really any way around it. I mean, you could play a Cruinor if you don't like Embercleave, but I'm totally fine with Embercleave in this deck. I find that I get enough creatures on the board versus aggro decks to basically turn it against them and start dealing incredible amounts of damage with Embercleave. So I think 2 copies is just fine. So they're down to 1. They're down to 1. They do play Genesis Ultimatum decks. They do play negates, and those are really annoying. So even if we get a shock or a Bone Crusher, we're definitely not guaranteed to win right now. But with a Sprite Dragon on board, I think we're pretty safe. Yeah, and I do believe I topped. I remember recalling. I believe I topped a Sprite. No, I didn't. Did I? I thought I sprited here. Yeah, I got into the Sprite, and I just hasted for 1. There's no problem. It was just like an insta scoop. I like to put on Embercleave just to make sure. It's fine, and that's a scoop. So we have a really hot start. Our first game that we played against Rogues was a decent game. It was a longer game. We ended up getting lucky with Ox, having it milled into our adventure board. And then our Genesis Ultimatum was really nice there. I guess you'd call it our exile board. And the Genesis, like I said, the Genesis Ultimatum game was really good. A really good hard-fought battle. And we faded the Genesis Ultimatum. This was a fun deck to play against. I don't know how I won this game, to be honest with you. I think I'm supposed to lose this game like 5 times out of 5. But just the cards lined up somehow. They lined up really well. And I got really lucky with an Accruing War. So basically, really won this game for us was the Accruing War. And you'll just see how wide this deck goes that I'm playing against today. This white deck goes incredibly wide fast. I like it. I do. I like it a lot. So we're definitely going to keep a Bone Crusher over land because we just want to try to keep killing stuff that they throw out. So you can see like how much value they make. I go for a ram through first. Perhaps maybe I can get lucky with like a Stormwing entity, get like a presence on the board. Maybe a shock. Contemplated putting a Sprite Dragon out there. And perhaps getting it to a 2-2, but after deliberating, I definitely want to stomp something. So I stomped a Spirit. And we're going to go next now. The question is do I play the Crash Through to look for a card? It's probably a good play. I think I really need like to draw an Accruing War. I mean, look how wide they are. 6 creatures. So I ended up not crashing through there to find something. But this works out. I ended up taking their 2-2 right here. Check this out. Take the 2-2 and then crash through. And I get a token. It's just so stupid. It was stupid awesome, actually. So now they have the plow. And they didn't, they chose to turn off the aggression. Now I want to just get creatures on the board. So that's exactly what I do. I get play 2 spells again. I get another 1/1 also, which is nice. And they're going to lose their Spirit next turn too. And they have to all come in for an attack. So now I'm pretty wide. Definitely have a mana advantage at this point and card advantage. 6 lands to 3 cards in hand versus their 3 and 3 in hand. Definitely like my position at this point. So they go in with a plow. They must attack. So they're giving the plow up. I just put all the spirits there just in case they have like some weird like 1/1 up spell. It's potentially possible. So I ended up just getting rid of them and killing the plow, and all of their stuff dies. Except the giant killer. That's gonna live. So they end up playing out Ox? 2 Oxes. They had so much floating mana. Look at that. Look at the last 3 they play out. Just insane, man. The plow. So, right now I'm feeling pretty good, actually. I'm at 13. I'm definitely not going to go down for lethal next turn, even though they're at 26. Not really too afraid of much. So we're just going to go in for as much. We're going to maximize our damage and with the Sprite Dragon. So we're going to get in for a lot right now. They choose no blocks. So they're going to gain a little bit of life when they attack with the plow, and they'll hit for a good amount of damage. Be at 7. They leave their giant killer open so they can tap down something next turn. And another plow was so interesting. Deck is like has legs, man, some serious legs. First they can go really wide on you, And then they can like have these crazy closers, these big ass oxes. So we're gonna go for the giant killer. We're gonna stomp it, and we'll tap down the giant. And we're okay with that. And then we'll get the other giant down, and we're not too afraid of both of the plows. And maybe a Maul of the Sky Cliffs could have been really bad. Now that I look back, the paranoid me was not present at this point. Maybe I could have left a Sprite Dragon behind for a Maul. But yeah, we faded it. We faded a Maul, and so what do they got? What did they draw? I don't know. We might never find out. It was a Faceless Haven. Not bad. Yeah, I like that play. I think it's fine. If I had one more mana open, no, that would have been the play. Get down another blocker. It's fine. Yeah, I'm definitely not too fearful now. The Faceless Haven would have a blocker down, and they just have 06s. This is no problems here. They end up going for the Haven, and that's good game right there. Yeah, paranoid me might have, looking back at this, might have held back the Sprite Dragon. They could have crewed the plows and had a Maul and got in for a good amount of damage. Could have killed me. But does that deck play Maul? I'm not so sure. It seems like it just plays a lot of wide creatures and the Ox and the Plow. They don't really have to generate a lot of cards either. They just go really wide and kill you. They generate lots of mana too, lots of life gain. Very interesting deck. Maybe that's one we can explore for another video. Seemed like a pretty budget friendly deck too. So we have a lot of creature hate for this, and pretty good if we are against a control mage. We have our Royal Scion. So good mixture. You gotta like the Izzet balance, right? You have your creature hate, you have your control hate, you have a lot of things going for you in parts of your deck that can adjust. And this is a very interesting deck that this person was playing. And I want you to try to spot the win con for this deck. And I think it's going to surprise you, actually, what the win con is. I was surprised. I was like, what is the win con here? Like, how are you going to kill me? I figured this deck must play a lot of like Doomscar and Shatter the Sky, but they were never able to like fully demonstrate that because the riddle forms are just so evasive. So having the riddle forms in this deck is also really great against control. They have to do everything at instant speed, meaning they have to play during my turn, the removal. It's not on the board. So they go for the Forsaken Monument, and at this point, what I'm looking for, I was looking for a counterspell prior to this. I did not find it. I found more shock, lots of shocks. But at this point now, I'm looking for a Brazen Borrower. I want to bounce the Forsaken Monument as soon as possible. It's just that card can get out of hand. Not too much more concerned about the elixir. Okay, we're gonna go for some damage now. They draw cards as long as their life total is above their original life total. They draw cards with the elixir, so that's a problem too. That's a problem. So we're just gonna get their life total down. I don't really want them to be drawing cards with the elixir. So they have a lot of potential mana. Like obviously Ugin right now would be great. That's what I was thinking at this point is like they must be wanting an Ugin. Man, they should just have Maze Mind Tome in their deck because then they could find it so much easier. I mean, this deck is a parker. This thing just parks out. Has like 4 Bertham latest already. Here comes another one. You know, and my draw was the only thing I have going for me at this point is the Royal Scion. Other than that, like, we were not having a good time in this deck at all. We weren't really drawing the cards we needed. So we're gonna hit for a lot right there, at least 10. We hit for 8. And let's see, what do we have here? It looks like we have another Riddle Form. That looks nice. I can hit him for a lot. I think I bounced the, go for the bounce first on the Forsaken Monument. Yeah, Embercleave was online right there. Could have hit for 8. But still wanting to find a counterspell here. Curious. Did we go for the op or probably yeah, we probably want to just bounce the monument. I think that puts them back at 7 mana. Okay, so they go immediately to charging the Barons. So can you spot the win con now? Look at, they could just really get going charging that thing up with a Forsaken Monument too. They were like desperate to get in that last little pump to their Barons. I think that mana was an anger mana. That's an anger tap. Did you see that? That's like I'm pissed because I can't find my Ugin right now. Or my Maze Mind Tomes. Probably looking for Maze Mind Tome or their Ugin. They're probably pissed that they can't find either. And they're just stuck with these walls. So they didn't have any further turns here, so I want to, I think I wanted a lot of land, even though I could have like scried for something. I wanted a lot of land available for this turn. So we didn't want another Ox. That was not what we wanted. We wanted just to end the game. So here comes the Embercleave. And they got him all the way down to 1. Very close. Very close. So they'll get 2 life. And they'll charge up the Barons. And You know, obviously, we're still afraid, right? If they have an Ugin, they can exile our riddle forms. That's bad. But once again, we get the really good news, and they go in for their Barons. And they're able to go in for 10. I mean, I see the potential with this deck too. I mean, this seems like just god awful nasty. So we're gonna activate the riddle form, and we're gonna say good game right here. Hit the wall. And we're gonna get the good news. We're gonna get the good game here. So we've had like 4 really good games right now in succession. Things definitely went our way. We faded a Genesis Ultimatum against a Sultai Ultimatum deck, and I think we definitely faded a couple things on that last game too. Definitely could see that deck like playing some Maze Mind Tome or Ugin to find answers, because man, that thing was a park. I really liked that deck too. That was kind of a nice deck. I really liked the decks I've been going against. Even in the platinum level, it's been really great this season. People are playing like really well, playing really nice decks, and they're not making too many mistakes either. But this was a lot of work to get this as a deck going. I had this as I had made an Izzet Snow deck a couple months ago, and the meta had just passed it by. It was no longer good. It had lost its powers. So I've definitely got the Sprite Dragon back. I just never even thought I would put this back in the deck. I really thought it had lost its mojo after Bloodchief's Thirst came out. I thought it was just too slow. I thought it just wasn't a viable creature anymore. But just having a couple copies in this deck, I think is fine. And against the cycle deck, that is exactly what we want to do. We want to beef up the Sprite Dragon as soon as possible. That is going to be the #1 plan. It's just to get the Sprite Dragon really big. So to end this game, the plan is to get the Sprite Dragon going, and then get a Lofty Denial. Because if I can find one of the 2 Lofty Denials, this deck will only have to go through 1 Zenith Flare. It's just going to have to make it through 1, because this deck is just too fast. And that would have been big. If they could have kept that healer alive, they would have definitely been gaining probably enough life to win, to survive, and perhaps get off a couple of Zenith Flares. But yeah, the only thing I need right now is to find a Lofty Denial. That is the #1 plan. And the cards that help enable me to do that in this deck is a Stormwing Entity. So what the Stormwing Entity does, especially if you're not playing against rogues, it's really strong, because you get to scry for 2 cards. You get to really stack your deck to exactly what you want. And there's a Lofty Denial, and I'm going to want that like immediately. I'm going to want it in my hand. Over the land, definitely over the land. I can do a lot of work in the meantime. just having that in my hand, I really could care less what they play. And another Draneth healer would be troublesome. But if they don't play a healer, I have too much life, way too much life at this point for them. I'm just going for their hit points at this time. Yeah, so I'm not worried about a Stinger at all. I think that's like definitely the best cycle card for the cycle deck is the Stinger. If you have 2 Stingers on deck, oh man, you're just doing so much damage. It's just like crazy. But I had taken out their Stinger earlier, and they're definitely not in a great spot now. So I thought the Zenith Flare could have maybe come out right now. Maybe against the Sprite. Maybe they would target my Sprite Dragon. Not sure though. But if they don't go for a Zenith Flare here, then we're gonna have the game in hand. So I still thought they might have had a Zenith Flare in hand because they just left that untapped. So now they're gonna just play on my turn. I guess they were just not ready to gamble. Maybe they had the Zenith Flare already. I suppose if the Zenith Flare is in the left 2 cards, then he had it. If it was already in his hand, perhaps they weren't ready to gamble to top another one. But it's regardless, this game is just finished. Well, I mean, it feels good, right? So like when you're in this position, you don't really have to do too much thinking. If they dropped like a Draneth healer at this time, that'd be kind of interesting, but I would just remove it and I'd still have my counter available. So we're going to go for the attack now. And finally we see the Zenith Flare. I'm just curious if it's going to be on the left side of his deck. So there's a cycle there. Okay, so that wasn't the Zenith Flare. And where is the Zenith Flare going to come from? Let's see. Okay, so they did top it. They didn't have it in hand, and regardless. And then we counter and we go in for the kill. So, what did we learn today? We learned that Izzet can be really awesome and balanced and get lucky. That's what we want. You want to be balanced and get lucky. That's the name of the game when you're playing Magic. And we're going to take a look at the deck one last time. If you stuck around, we'll get a little more analysis here. And I'll definitely put it in the YouTube stamp that we talk about the deck a little more right now. I play 22 lands in this deck, and including the Temple of Epiphany. The Embercleaves played really well. The Ox did its job. Got the cards. You want to refresh your cards. The Goldspan and the Storming Entity were great creatures. Just 2-ups of those. The Crone War did its job. I have the Bounce and the Stomp with the Adventure cards. The Royal Scions did the job with 3 each. Just 2 Lofty Denials. You don't want too much counter magic in the Izzet deck. You want a lot of kill and bounce, and a couple counters, just a couple. And I thought the Lofty Denial much better than saw it coming. Much better in this deck. Have lots of flyers. Definitely the way to go. And of course, you have your ops and your crash throughs, and then a witch's oven, of course, for the Ukraine wars. And that was it. Thank you so much. Bye.